How are you doing?
I'm doing great. What about you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. I haven't had to be outside too much today in the humidity and the storms. I am going to do a very quick introduction of you based on what was on your website. And then we're going to jump right into these questions. Are you ready? And we're going to pull two from the Q&A also.
We are
So,
ready.
Mandela Barnes is a community organizer. I know that's your roots and you like that. Community organizer, president of Power to the Polls, has served in the assembly and, of course, was the lieutenant governor of Wisconsin. All right. First question. Not shockingly, one of the ones we got the most, data centers. We all know, and the candidates all agree, that something has to be done. What can the governor do, or what do you need the legislature to do? And should this be left to local governments and the people? So, like, which of those combinations of things can you do?
Well, there's certainly a combination, and I really appreciate that. There's not a single room I've been in, this question hasn't come up. And for far too long, technology companies, social media, they've been able to get over on everyday people. They harvest our data, they contribute to mental health crises amongst the youth, and they've also increased political polarization. And they've been able to do this because there's been limited to no accountability. And as a state, we have a responsibility to show some leadership. Now, data centers have been popping up all over the place, and the concerns are very real. Water impact, air quality, increasing utility rates, a drain on the grid, potentially leading to rolling blackouts. So many things that people have brought up at every single town hall or community meeting about that, yet they've been unaddressed because the legislature decided to adjourn without addressing them. Now, I do fully support local control. If a community does not want a data center shouldn't be built. And I can also say there should be zero tax subsidies for data center construction. These are trillion-dollar companies, companies that have more than enough money. We don't owe them a dime. Now, to that point, we need guardrails in this state. We need guardrails before any new data center is constructed. And while I do respect local control, without the proper guardrails in place, there's the risk of these data center companies showing up and taking advantage of communities that have already been dealt a bad hand, making promises that they cannot fulfill. We've already been through the whole Foxconn fiasco before, and we don't need to experience that again. So there should be no new data center without proper guardrails. And I do fully support a pause until we get to that point.
Okay, thank you very much. Here's the next question. I'm going to read it as it was written to me because it's a good question that I've never heard before on one of these forums. I'm surprised to not hear about private equity takeovers. They're taking over waste management companies that serve public communities, nursing homes, vets, dental and medical practices, single family homes, apartment buildings, and complexes. How much has this contributed to inflation? How can we incentivize not selling to these vultures?
Single family homes and even manufactured lots, like trailer
Oh,
parks. That is, private equity is coming in. They make a lot of things worse. I believe the technical term is enshittification. And we've been experiencing a lower quality of goods and services that we've, come to enjoy over the course of time. If you wonder why your favorite fast food restaurant doesn't taste like it did in years past, is because there's lower quality content. And we continue to experience life in more difficult ways, and it is because corporate greed rules the day. I speak often about the jobs that my grandfather, or the job that my grandfather had, that let him be able to afford a home without a college education, just working manual labor on an assembly line as a union steelworker. Now, it is more difficult for people to be able to purchase that first home now, even if you have a college degree or an advanced degree. And a part of that is because private equity has found itself in the conversation. And that's why we have to ban private equity from being able to gobble up single family homes in mass, especially in distressed communities. We also have to hold these folks accountable for the declining quality in goods and services. And as long as big money is allowed to rule the day, you see the outcomes that put private equity over people. And a big part of that equation is also the fact that big money continues to flood our politics. And as big money floods our politics, it is the special interests who get away and ultimately win, regardless of who's in office. So I've been, part of this fight. I remember even during my time as an organizer, taking over a private equity owned waste management company because of their mismanagement and their lackluster services that left communities scrambling for answers. There's very little accountability when you
Mm.
have private equity in the mix, and that's what we have to seek to change.
You're right about the accountability thing. That is part of the problem. Um, Same reason, this is not a question, but it's the same reason that I do not like privatization very much. Okay. Waukesha County residents consistently cite rising property taxes and the increasing cost of living as major concerns. As governor, what specific policies would you pursue to provide meaningful tax relief while ensuring that local governments and schools have the resources they need? Please review how you would plan to improve the community/state shared revenue such that the communities get their fair share, can adjust for inflation, and can truly resume local control of their spending. That
Well,
was a lot.
absolutely. Yeah, it was a lot, but certainly understand the point because it comes up all the time. Property taxes continue to rise. And a big piece of this is because the legislature has failed to fully fund public education, and that burden falls on property taxpayers. School districts all across this state are going to referendum every single year. They're going to referendum every single election to raise their own taxes. And this is creating a mismatch in the quality of education that's delivered in communities. A couple things we got to do. One, obviously, we have to increase the corporate tax rate. If even if you do about less than 1%, this would bring in new revenue to Wisconsin. If we open up new revenue streams like legalizing marijuana, that would also create new revenue streams where we would be able to finally be able to fund our basic and essential services that have gone by the wayside because essentially there is no money to do so. And if there's $2 billion to subsidize a data center,
Mm.
then there's certainly $2 billion to be relief that could be given directly to working class folks all across Wisconsin. And that would also help us increase share revenue. And it will also allow us to provide a middle income tax cut. I can tell you, those companies that send our good paying jobs overseas, they don't deserve tax breaks. If they're looking to outsource to artificial intelligence, those companies don't deserve tax breaks. And those companies and corporations that don't pay living wage do not deserve tax breaks. We have to hold the line and shift the balance of power back to working people.
All right. I told your campaign that we were going to ask one question, as we have to all the candidates. It's kind of a challenge to something on your website. So this is that challenge question, and then I'll check the Q&A and see if there's something in there. And then we have a fun question right at the end. You say on your website, as governor, I will freeze utility rates and take on monopolies like We Energies, who are exploiting ratepayers to line their own pockets. My question is, does the governor actually have the power to do this? How can you tell a publicly traded corporation to do anything?
So I am the only candidate who's calling to freeze the rates. And this is because utility companies have gotten over on us. They jack up rates, but they also jack up compensation for their highest paid executives. They also use our ratepayer dollars to fund lobbying and political contributions. It's absolutely not fair. And a rate freeze is not at all unprecedented. I want to say
Hmm.
2017 was the last rate freeze. These utility companies have so much money. And now, what I also want to mention that as a governor, you appoint the public service commissioners. And I will look to appoint public service commissioners who have demonstrated work in the interest of people, not in the interest of industry, to serve on the commission. And you can tell by a person's track record that this will be the type of person who is keen to do the right thing, to drive down costs, to increase renewable energy potential across the state as well, and be bold and unafraid to take on big corporate interests.
Talk about the PSC for a second, because I'm not entirely clear on what they do.
Yep. So the Public Service Commission is a board of three commissioners, and they determine utility rate increases. You have to go before the PSC to be able to get that increase. And we've unfortunately seen a number of increases, and it's something that needs to stop right now because people are finding it more and more difficult to be able to afford that home that they may have even had the good fortune of being able to purchase. Heating a home, cooling a home gets more expensive by the year, and it absolutely should not. So the Public Service Commission, they serve 6 year staggered terms technically, but they, as it turns out, the most recent commissioners were all basically appointed within the same year. And so I think the next opening comes up in about 2030.
What? That's a
Yep.
long time from now. Holy cow. Okay, good to know. Um, let's see. Let me look at these questions here. Oh, I like this one. What role should our teachers have in the development of state education policies and legislation that impact them and their students?
I think it's vitally important to have educators part of the mix. You are the ones who are actually delivering the education. And if a person is going to be tasked with the work, they should be a part of determining the work. Our teachers are going to obviously see firsthand what our students are or are not responding to, what happens to work, what doesn't work, and what some of the more pressing challenges may be. This is a front row seat to actual society. Teachers oftentimes are the first ones to spot trends among students. And these are the folks who are going to be most capable with responding to and addressing those challenges as they appear. So I do fully believe that educators deserve a seat at the table with the Department of Public Instruction when it comes to setting curriculum.
Um, Somebody asked what you've been up to since your Senate race. Do you want to talk about power to the polls or
I
something else?
absolutely want to talk about all the stuff I've been up to. So I led a group, Power to the Polls, as president. Power to the Polls is focused on engaging new and infrequent voters, specifically working to increase Black voter participation, which has been on the decline all across the country since 2012. And a lot of campaigns and candidates made up the difference with suburban voters, but I say, why not have both? I think it's critical to our democracy to keep people as engaged as possible. Power to the Polls ran year-round operations, not a 30 to 60-day pop-up operation.
Mm.
And we talked to people about the issues that matter day in and day out, year-round. And most importantly, listened and answered questions as they came up. And we ran the largest independent voter mobilization effort ever in Wisconsin, now specifically targeting Black voters. And in 2024, Milwaukee had the highest voter turnout of the 50 largest cities in the entire country. Milwaukee
Thought I
also had
read that. Yeah.
Yep. Milwaukee also had the least significant swing towards Donald Trump in the 2024 election compared to other major cities and swing states. So the work speaks for itself. And that was me getting back to my roots as an organizer. It was important to focus on how do we engage and mobilize voters, whether I was on the ballot or not. I also started an organization from scratch called Forward Together Wisconsin. Now, Forward Together Wisconsin was an organ or is an organization, still exists. I'm just not there anymore. Forward Together Wisconsin is an organization that sought to advance Wisconsin's clean energy goals from the outside using resources from the Inflation Reduction Act, which was the nation's largest investment in clean energy technology and sustainability. Now, given what was out there in terms of support for individuals, for homeowners, for businesses, for local government and school districts, the fact is, most people had zero idea of how they could be impacted positively by the Inflation Reduction Act. And because of it, a lot of those dollars were on the table. And we want to make sure that communities knew what they had access to actually be able to lower costs in real time. We put together a plan that provided low interest loans that were mostly forgivable for income eligible households to be able to invest in energy assessments and weatherization work, which led to lower energy costs in real time. We also work with schools, school districts, smaller units of government to be able to implement policy that would achieve their sustainability goals. And direct pay was one of the, I'm getting a little wonky with this, but
I know, and that's okay. We have very smart people.
it was very, very important and engaging work because, through direct pay opportunities, uh, school districts, nonprofit organizations, places of worship were able to invest in renewable energy and get 30% refunded by the Treasury Department. And that was, unique policy that sought to address the climate crisis. And those direct pay dollars are still in effect, at least until the end of the year. So for folks who are watching, who are interested in making that clean energy investment, I would suggest they do it now. Ford Together is still an active organization, and we have technical assistance managers that can help walk you through the process. I keep saying we, I'm not there anymore, and I need to I need to accept that I need to accept that I am on leave from the organization, but it's the group I started from scratch. So very much a fan of the work that is still happening to this day. And that's Ford Together, wi.org for those who are interested. And then finally, I worked with a group called the Democracy Defense Project, which is a bipartisan group of former party officials, whether you're in elected office or the party at large. And it's a nationwide organization that
Oh,
seeks to combat election disinformation and dispel myths around voting and election integrity, but also promote policy that protects the integrity of the vote.
there's another question I want to ask you in the chat, and then we'll do the fun one at the end. But first, um, speaking of Forward Together, one of the questions someone asked that I didn't ask you because it was kind of to do with the We Energies question, but she said, I would love to install solar panels on my house, but it's not affordable. Is part of this gonna help that?
So it would have those tax credits have gone away for homeowners.
That's
And so
federal
that's
tax credits, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
the federal tax credits. And a part of my plan has been bringing those back at a state level. That's a part of our affordability agenda. That's a part of our clean energy plan to bring back the credits, at least at a state level, to cover the gap until we get a new president and a new Congress that's actually going to address the issue and bring about the sort of change in policy that we need and deserve.
All right. If you don't have Democratic majorities in both the Senate and the Assembly, how will you accomplish your priorities, especially those that would require raising taxes for additional funding?
Well, I am happy to work with whoever to do the right thing. And that's what it comes down to. I know my values, I won't compromise my values. I know the needs of communities all across the state, and I'll never forsake communities when it comes to addressing those needs. That being said, when we talk about policy that increases taxes, my plans call for increasing taxes only on the most wealthy. We're talking about the ultra wealthy, the people who've gotten away without paying their fair share, the out-of-state corporations, reforming the agriculture and manufacturing tax credit. I always say that the money is there, it's just being spent wrong. We have to be smarter about the way that we disperse funds and the way that we prioritize creating opportunity through the budgeting process across Wisconsin. I don't look to increase the budget. I look to increase the pot of money through fair taxes and a more progressive taxation that ensures that the wealthiest among us aren't getting away with these loopholes that have allowed them to pocket money while working families are carrying the bulk of the tax burden.
That is, that's the dream, man. Okay, last question just for fun. What is your favorite spot in Waukesha County?
My favorite spot in Waukesha County. So I'm trying to think. There are a few. I used to work in Oconomowoc back in 2006.
Oh,
Um,
really?
but I will say one of my favorite spots in Waukesha County. I did the triathlon trying for a cure to benefit cancer research, and that's in Dousman.
Okay.
So I've had a chance to
A beautiful
explore.
city to run through. Yeah,
Well, I've
sure.
had a chance to explore it and by land and by sea.
Oh, did you work on a boat in Oconomowoc Lake?
Got to swim in the water, got to, my feet
Oh,
never
that's
touched
right,
the
a
ground.
triathlon.
My feet never touched the ground on the bike, so by air and then by land during the run.
That's pushing it, but I will accept it. Thank you so much for joining us.
For sure.
If you win the primary, will you come back for a longer conversation at
We'll
an
absolutely
in-person meeting?
we'll be delighted to come back.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much. You take care.
All right, you too.
Bye.